right, so today you are going to be planning your conclusion of your compare and contrast essay. So this language dive is going to take a closer look at the topic sentence or the first sentence of that conclusion paragraph. So the very first question on your quiz just asks you to identify which sentence from the conclusion that we're going to be looking at. So go ahead and take a minute to answer that. Although the article and the novel focus on different parts of the journey, they discuss similar events. We're going to go through this language dive and kind of break down this sentence and look at what each part of this sentence does. First, let's look at the word although. Why does the author use the word although at the beginning of this sentence? Remember, this is a compare and contrast essay. So you are comparing the article, The Lost Girls of Sudan, to the novel, A Long Walk to Water. Now, this sentence comes from the model essay, but he was also comparing and contrasting. So this is a word, although, that signals a contrast. This is a contrast word. So he's going to point out what's different between the two texts. So it signals that contrast. Some other words that you could use for this might be even though or while, but it's a contrast word. It's signaling a contrast. So let's take a look at this sentence frame. Although I really liked blank, I didn't like blank. So look at the structure of the sentence. First, it's going to point out a similarity, but then it's also going to point out a difference. So try this sentence frame to talk about one thing you liked about the novel and one thing you didn't like. Although I really liked Salva's journey, I didn't like that his uncle died. Something like that. But you can't use what I said. You have to have your own. Now let's look at this chunk. The article and the novel. Well, that just tells us what two texts are being compared again. So remember, this is a compare and contrast essay. So in this conclusion, the author is just reminding us that he compared the article and the novel. So he's just identifying the two texts that were compared in the essay. Focus on different parts of the journey. What do you think this phrase means? Let's look at this word focus. If you focus on something, that means you are giving a lot of attention to it, a lot of detail to it. So the writer is suggesting that both the article and the novel provided a lot of detail about the journey. They focused on different parts of it, but there was a lot about the journey in both texts. They discuss similar events. Well, what does they refer to? So if we think about the context of this entire sentence, although the article and the novel focus on different parts of the journey, they discuss similar events. Well, what is the they referring to? This is a pronoun that refers to something previously in the sentence. So they refers back to the article and the novel. Although although the article and the novel focus on different parts of the journey, the article and the novel discuss similar events. Instead of being repetitive, the author is using the pronoun they to replace the article and the novel. So now let's look at it again in a whole here. Although the article and the novel focus on different parts of the journey, they discuss similar events. Think about some different ways that you could say this sentence in a different order. So you really could write this sentence in different ways. So take a look at your Canvas quiz and read some of those sentences to yourself. How could you rearrange the parts of this sentence but still express the same idea? And then finally, what you're going to do is you're going to look at completing a sentence very similar to this. Use this frame to compare and contrast the article and novel in your own words. And I want you to compare The Lost Girls of Sudan to A Long Walk to Water, because that's what your essay is about. And the sentence that you create, you could actually use as the first paragraph of your conclusion when you write it. So again, we're kind of putting all together here the compare and the contrast. Although the article and the novel blank, they blank. So have some kind of play around a little bit in what you could write about your two texts, The Lost Girls of Sudan and A Long Walk to Water. Once you're finished doing that, submit your quiz. If you missed any of the questions, you might want to look at what you missed and then go ahead and go to your essay organizer and start planning your conclusion.